this limit should look familiar because we've seen it before. The limit as x approaches 0 of sine x over x. So hopefully you learn to even just know this one, but graph it and see if you get 1. So the limit is equal to 1. This is what the graph looks like. So again, as we are moving in from the left side to 0, f of x is here at 1, is what it's approaching, even though when x is 0, f of x is undefined. And from the right side, or the upper bound, as we're moving into x equals 0, f of x is going to be 1, or at least approaching 1, even though it doesn't equal 1. So the limit does exist, and it is 1. Here's a window for your graphing calculator to see if you can get this graph. In example 5, for the function given by f of x equals x squared subtract 1, find the limit as h approaches 0 of f of 3 plus h subtract f of 3 over h. So what we're going to do in order to find f of 3 plus h is we are going to come over to function f, and instead of x, we are going to find f of 3 plus h squared subtract 1. So we're going to replace x with 3 plus h in just this first part. So let's go ahead and do this first part. Let me get my pen. All right, so I have the limit as h approaches 0. And this first part of the function is going to be f of 3 plus h. So place of x goes 3 plus h. So this is 3 plus h squared. And then you still have subtract 1. So you'll put subtract 1. Then we're going to subtract f of 3. So to subtract f of 3, we're going to do subtract, and we're going to need to use parentheses because it's subtract the whole thing. And then you'll go ahead and plug in where you see x. This time you're going to plug in 3. So this is going to give us 3 squared subtract 1. Now, something that's really important to remember are these parentheses right here, because it's subtract the whole thing, all right? And again, this f of 3, I went to f of x, and instead of x, I put in a 3. All right, and then the bottom is simply going to be over h. So we'll just leave that the same. Now we're going to go ahead and simplify what we have. So I'm going to leave my limit, the limit as h approaches 0. And I've got 3 plus h squared. So if we come over here, that means I have 2 of those, 3 plus h times 3 plus h. And so that's going to equal, first times first is 9. Outside inside's 3h plus 3h is 6h. And then h times h is h squared. So that's going to be my first part. So I get 9 plus 6h plus h squared. And I'll highlight that for you. So 3 plus h squared is equal to this. All right, we're going to continue with our problem. So now I still have subtract 1 here. So I've got subtract 1. And then I want to take care of the parentheses first. So I've got 3 squared is 9, and 9 subtract 1 is 8. So this is going to be subtract 8 all over h. A negative 1 and a negative 8 is a negative 9. So the 9 and the negative 9 will cancel. And then we can factor an h out of the numerator. So this is the limit. Hold on, I want black pen again. So this is the limit as h approaches 0. And we're going to factor out that h. And that's going to give me 6 plus h over h. Now, at the beginning of this problem, I could not use direct substitution because at the beginning, if I were to directly substitute in 0 everywhere I saw an h, that would give me a 0 at the bottom of a fraction. But now you can see that I'm going to be able to cancel these h's, and now I can go ahead and use direct substitution to find the limit. So the limit is going to be equal to 6 plus 0, which is equal to 6. So find the limit as h approaches 0 of this function. It's equal to 6. So under the reflection, I would like you to take a minute to think back of all the different ways that we have been able to find limits. So if I'm looking for limits and I'm not going to use direct substitution, my first method is going to be to factor it, to do some canceling, and then use direct substitution. Another method that I could use is I could evaluate a table to see if I'm approaching a certain number. I could use a graph. I think the graph is the easiest way to find the limit. And then in this lesson today, we learned how to rationalize a square root in order to find the limit. So happy finding limits. Now you're going to try the second homework assignment that goes with limits and turn it into Google Classroom. Thanks. Happy. You can do it. AVHS is number 1.